More Black Lives Matter marches sparked by the death of George Floyd in America last month have taken part across the UK today. All have been peaceful, with the biggest again in London, despite pleas to stay away because of social distancing measures. Our correspondent Neil Connery was with them.
On the march heading off for Parliament Square, protesters on the latest Black Lives Matter demonstration.
No races, no justice.
This is the third weekend in a row the capital has seen these protests as anger and demands for action continue. Earlier, as demonstrators gathered in Hyde Park, some spoke of their hope that they're bringing about change.
It's a really crazy time, but I think people need to just harness the energy and really just get behind it and realise that this is a time for change. And I think as the protests have really been sustained over the last couple of weeks, I think more and more people are now seeing that this could actually have a difference.
Simon McCormack and his family felt it was important to be here, as his son Jasper explained.
The only wrong thing to say is not to say anything at all.
Yeah, that's fair. It'll be too easy to stay at home and not travel from Oxford and do nothing, and then that doesn't get the message across.
At the end of a week when the Prime Minister announced a new commission to look at all aspects of racial inequality, Patricia Williams told me she believes actions are more important than words.
I'm bored of having a review after review after review into systematic racism. I just want actions now. I want you to do something about this. You know, stop commissioning other reviews. The reviews are there, the recommendations are there. Follow through on them. I think people are bored of politicians speaking and the words being very, very empty.
Despite police appeals for people to stay away because of coronavirus, these demonstrators are determined that their message that Black Lives Matter is heard loud and clear. The marchers are due to arrive in Westminster shortly, a week after clashes with police there from counter-protests. Neil Connery, ITV News.
Well, other demonstrations also took place across the UK today. In Edinburgh, crowds gathered at St Andrew's Square to call for the removal of the statue of Henry Dundas, who opposed the abolition of slavery. But in Newcastle, demonstrators avoided the controversial Grays Monument because there were clashes there with another group last week.
After an unscheduled break of 3 months due to coronavirus, the first Saturday back for the Premier League was always likely to look different. No crowds, messages of thanks to the NHS, and a universal show of solidarity.
The players have chosen to make their own statement.
Players once again taking the knee in support of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Thousands of Black Lives Matter protesters have come together in the capital for the third weekend in a row in the wake of the killing of George Floyd in America. Groups of demonstrators gathered first at Hyde Park and Vauxhall before marching to Parliament Square. There has been a heavy police presence around parts of the protest after a number of people were injured in previous weeks, but officers said today has been largely peaceful so far.
We've got some officers here on the ground, not many officers. We really hope it doesn't turn violent. We don't want any violence, but if it does turn violent, perhaps later, then we will have enough officers on to deal with it.
As you may have heard, Black Lives Matter anti-racism protests have continued today, despite pleas from police and the Mayor of London for people to stay away to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Well, in East London, black, white and other people gathered, mostly at a social distance, while some London businesses say they're starting to see important changes. Here's Caroline Davis.
Taking a knee and a minute's silence in East Ham today. As Black Lives Matter protests continue, protesters say they are seeing the impact.
The atmosphere is changing. People are wanting to learn and be aware. I do think it's a great atmosphere.
I think there's definitely a feeling of momentum, of not going back to being quiet. For me, I have so many white friends and peers, and I can see that solidarity for the first time in my life that exists online and in person.
Nearly 4 weeks on since the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, events like this continue in London. And as they continue, some businesses are saying they're already seeing an impact as attitudes change. There are 4 Pen Pamsey shops across London, including here in Brixton.
We're a store that deals with black culture, black interest books, jewellery, but we're also a health store.
Basil says he's seen support from across the local community.
As a result of this whole Black Lives Matter campaign, people have mentioned that they will support the business even more so. Books have done well. We have definitely seen an improvement in the numbers and more people seeking knowledge and information. Hopefully there'll be some lasting change.
Chinello runs a luxury cake-making business. Recently, her company was promoted by Instagram influencers as a Black-run business, which has led to more orders. But Black Lives Matter has also had a profound effect on how she sees her brand.
For the first 2 years of my business, I didn't write that it was Good Cake Day by Chinello because I was worried that if people saw my name, they wouldn't buy from me. And that's because the cake industry is quite a white industry. If I wanted to post on Instagram, I would be worried that, if people saw my hand, then they would obviously tell that I was Black. And then I felt that subconsciously people would just think, she doesn't make quality stuff. I was doing all these things subconsciously. Now it's quite hard to not know that I'm Black if you go on my Instagram page because my face is everywhere. And I'm the person who's making the cakes. And also, if you don't want to buy a cake because I'm Black, I don't want to make a cake for you anyways.
Chinello says small shifts in attitude are a start. What she and many others want is action and change that lasts. Caroline Davis, BBC London.